share again. Give me a second. Wow, trust technology to fail me in the morning. Okay. Can you see my screen? And it should be saying, the heading should say contract modification. Okay. Okay. All right. Sorry, guys, I don't know why it froze. I don't know. My laptop decided to fight me. Apologies for that. Okay, so the first part that I was talking about was to say, this is the decision tree I was talking about all along. And going all the way straight down the decision tree is where we get to a separate contract. Okay, so additional goods or services, as well, additional distinct goods or services, as well as additional selling, standalone selling price, we get a separate contract. The second part I was talking about was if we don't have, so we've got an approved contract, but we don't have additional goods or services, then we continue to account for the existing contract. The third scenario is if we have additional goods or services, but we are not providing these additional goods or services at their standalone selling price. That was the last example we're talking to say, initially we were selling the water bottles, 20 water bottles at 50 Rand each. We made a modification, so we changed the contract, and we said we're going to add another 5 bottles. So these are additional goods or services. But we are, for these 5 goods or service, for these additional 5 bottles, we are charging 20 Rand per bottle. Okay. So this 20 Rand is not an amount we typically charge. It is a significant discount. It does not represent the standalone selling price. In that case, we said yes here, but no here. So what happens is we terminate the existing contract. So the original contract is over. When I say terminate, I'm not saying I'm going to reverse that revenue. I'm saying it's over. Whatever revenue we've already recognized for that existing contract, we keep it. That's done. We then look forward to say, okay, if we already delivered 5 bottles, we've got 15 more to deliver, plus this new 5 that we've added. So we've got another 20 now, a new 20, a new contract with 20. Our new transaction price will be whatever wasn't used in that first portion, plus the additional amount we've agreed to. So initially we'd agreed to 50 Rand per bottle. So we've got 15 plus 15 times 50 left over, plus 5 times 20. So our new transaction price is those amounts together, right? The 15 times 50 and the 25 times 20 together. And we're going to allocate that total over the new 20. That's a new contract now. So see what I say when I say new contract? Old contract, the 5 at 50, recognized, done. We're not touching. Turn around. And we start from scratch. So we do the step 5 model from scratch for this new contract. And we say, do a contract? Yes. What are the POs? Each bottle is a different PO. So we've got 20 different POs. What is the transaction price? And then we say, what is the transaction price? We've agreed to 15 at 50 Rand and 5 at 20 Rand. So the transaction price is all of that together. Then we take the total and we allocate to the 20. So then we've got a new price for each bottle, so long 50 Rand, and it's not 20 Rand for the last 5. We're going to allocate evenly, right, across, like we typically do at step 4. Not evenly, proportionally across all 20. And then for step 5, how to recognize the revenue. We conclude at a point in time. So as we recognize each bottle, we recognize revenue for the new amount. So not 50. Let me actually do an Excel. I think it's easier to explain this last one through Excel, through actual numbers. Okay. Okay. So original contract, we had 20. And the selling price was 50 Rand each. Okay. the total transaction price in this contract was these two, right? Was 20 times 50, so there's 1,000 Rand. And then we said we allocated proportionally, and we get to still 50 Rand per bottle. Okay, so unit price was still 50 Rand per bottle. Then we modify, right? Or let's say first we deliver 5. Okay, so what that means is we've then recognized revenue. Recognize revenue of 5. Sorry, let me just do it here. We're delivering the 5 at 50 Rand, right? Because we said we allocated 50 Rand as a transaction price to each PO. So therefore, our revenue recognized is 5 times 50. So in this scenario, so this last scenario we're in here, we are terminating the existing contract, which means this contract no longer exists. We don't care about this anymore. We are fine with this recognized revenue. This revenue stays, okay? The amount recognized here, it stays as is, okay? But they're still outstanding, right? Because we're terminating the old contract, but we're creating a new contract. There's still 15 bottles we haven't delivered, right? And there's still a portion of this transaction price that we have not recognized, okay? So this comes into this modified contract. So paste values here, okay? So our modified contract, we take what was outstanding here, so at 15, and its transaction price of 50, meaning there's still a 750 outstanding, plus the new or the additional goods. Let me say additional goods or services. Okay, and we said we added 5, and that 5 we added 20 Rand. So our new additional transaction price is 100 Rand. Okay, that means our new total contract is I've still got 20 more bottles to deliver. But these 20 bottles at a total price of 850. Okay, so our new contract, we don't change this, that this stays in our books. The revenue is done. The contract has been fulfilled. Essentially, when we're saying we're terminating the existing contract, we're saying we fulfilled it, or fulfilled partially. Whatever's been delivered, that portion has been fulfilled. We're moving on with our lives. This new contract, we've got 20 bottles, and we're going to receive 850 for them. So our transaction price is 850. We need to allocate. So we say 850 divided by the 20, and our new unit price is 42 Rand 50. So for every bottle we deliver of this remaining 20, we will recognize revenue of 42 Rand 50. So now, if we deliver 5, like we did before, what we will have is 42 Rand 50, which is the transaction price allocated into each PO, times the price delivered. And now, for each 5 we deliver, we recognize 212. Okay, so going forward, this stays at 5, it's done. This new contract, for each 5 we deliver, recognize 212. For each individual we deliver, recognize 42 and 50. Okay. So that's how this last one plays out. So termination of existing contract means whatever's been done is done. Whatever we've delivered, that 5 is delivered to move on with our lives. Whatever's remaining, we add to this new contract and we start from scratch. Start all the steps, step 1 to 5, from scratch. That's what this last one means. Okay, so 3 possible scenarios. 1, separate contract, meaning leave whatever's been done here and start from scratch with the new additional goods or services, right? So this new contract continues to treat it as is. The original 20, you treat exactly as is, and this 5, you treat according to its own terms. Second scenario, you change the existing contract, meaning you could have to make an adjustment to revenue retrospectively as well. So you make a change to the existing contract. This last one, whatever's been done, you leave as is, and then you add the outstanding or undelivered portions to the new contract and you rerun the 5 steps for the new contract, but the new contract includes the additional goods and services and the undelivered goods and services. Okay. Zintle?
Hi. Just to clarify, I would like to just ensure. Hi,
I see
can you
you're
hear
off
me?
mute, but I'm not getting any sound.
Hello? Hello?
We can hear Zintle.
Is it just me? Can you guys hear Zintle?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, we can hear you.
sorry, guys. Okay, Zintle, go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, so I just want to ensure that I get your points clearly for the 3 scenarios. Ne? You said the first one, we create a separate contract if there's a significant change in the amount, but the goods stay the same. It's the same bottles, but then we now changing in terms of the number of bottles from 20 to 25. So the 5 additional bottles that we are now selling to the customer at a significant discount, like from 50 Rand to 20 Rand, we create a separate contract for that.
Pause. So for the first scenario, it's one that's not at a significant discount. So for the first scenario, there are additional goods, you're correct, the 5, but the price is a standalone price. So it's a price similar to what we charge other customers. That's when we get the separate contract. So we treat those new 5 as a new contract, but that's when you've got additional goods and services, and those goods and services are provided at the normal standalone selling price that the entity would sell. That's scenario 1. The significant discount is this last one that I spoke about now.
I am confused though, because I thought I got this, because I was gonna say okay, yeah.
No, go for it. Explain to me what you thought, and then we can.
So I initially thought for the first scenario, it's the same bottles, let's say green bottles. We are selling to this, we enter into this contract with this customer, green bottles they are 20 at 50 Rand each, and then subsequently the customer comes and say I need additional 5, and then I decide to the additional 5 now. We agree at 20 Rand. Say now the pricing is different. So now my understanding was that because the pricing is different, we create a new contract, but it's still the same bottles, it's still the same green bottles. It's just that the additional 5, it's no longer at 50 Rand, it's going to be at 20 Rand. So now, because of the significant change in the price, it's not added onto the existing contract, but then we create a new contract for that. That was my picture in it. And then for the last one, I was gonna ask that if it's a change now in terms of from the green bottles now to blue bottles, then it becomes like, okay, from the green bottles to the blue bottles, it's still the same bottles, but then we're adding on to the existing contract because the pricing now it's not 50 Rand though, it's 55 Rand, it's more or less the same pricing. We add on to the existing contract, we continue the same. I thought that way, that's what I was picturing when you were explaining, but then my picture. But then I thought, okay, if I have a case where the quantity, the product itself or the performance obligation is the same. I'm just changing maybe from the green bottles to the blue bottles, and the blue bottles is 55 Rand each, whereas the green bottles is 50 Rand. Then it's more or less the same price add on to the continue to the existing contract. And then for the last one, where there's a termination of an existing contract, that's where I got lost. Like, what happens then? When do we agree to terminate the original one and create a new one? Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We'll unpack that just now. Snalo?
Hi, Kanyisile.
Hi.
I just wanted you to kindly show me the calculation for the allocation. I think I missed that part.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So from your question, Zinhle, I'm seeing that what actually was missing from my explanation is the rationale. Because I think the rationale will help make sense of this. Okay. So remember, one of the key things, or one of the things we're trying to cover with revenue is to say, if I am selling water bottles, the same water bottles, there's a certain price I'm happy to charge for these bottles, right? And like we said, maybe it's 50 Rand. If it's less than 20, then it becomes 18 Rand. If it's more than 20, or whatever. But we've got certain price lists, and that represents our standalone selling price for these items. So how much I'm okay receiving for these bottles. Okay. So if okay, and while I'm at that, it kind of represents how much I'm happy to receive for these bottles. Think about one of the things we speak about when we speak about allocation. That when we're allocating the transaction price, we are trying to again assess what is a fair amount for the different goods I'm allocating. Oh, sorry, the different goods I'm providing. So just because I am saying I'm giving you a discount on, I'm selling you 50 bottles, I'm giving you a discount on the last 5. That's not necessarily true, right? Because the cost it's taken me to make these goods is the same. It's the exact same goods. I've got a certain amount I want to make for them. So it's actually the same price. I'm actually going to recover pretty much the equal amount, right? I'm going to, as an entity, I will spread this amount I'm receiving from you across all 5 bottles because there's no basis upon which I'm going to say this blue bottle is worth 50 Rand and this one's worth 20 Rand. When it's the exact same bottle. They're worth the exact same thing, right? These 2 items are identical. They're worth the exact same thing. The fact that I'm charging you 50 versus 20 is probably my kind of marketing. It's my attempt to, what do I want to say? It's my attempt to entice you to buy more. But by enticing you to buy more, that doesn't make these last bottles sold worth less. They aren't worth less. They're worth the exact same thing. Okay. So revenue or IFRS 15 tries to cover that. Providing a discount or saying that discount relates to one item doesn't actually mean that that item is actually worth less. Doesn't actually mean I'm delivering less, right? Because I'm honoring a performance obligation. It doesn't mean I'm delivering less of a good. I'm delivering less of a service. I'm delivering the same service. So the revenue should represent the fact that I'm delivering the same service, right? So take that thinking into more contract modifications. We've got a contract modification, and we've got these exact same bottles, these 20 bottles, and these new 5 or additional 5. It's the exact same items in this case. It won't always be the exact same case, but in our example, to keep it simple, the exact same bottles. If I'm adding 5 bottles and I'm selling them at the standalone selling price, creating a separate contract will still be fair representation, right? Because I am actually still going to represent, I'm not going to show a significant discount on one versus the other. So in that case, it makes sense to keep the contract separate because I'm actually selling both these contracts are at a reasonable price. So it's a price that I could have entered into a contract with Uzindle at 50 Rand per bottle and a contract with Felicity at 45 Rand per bottle. It's a reasonable thing. I could have done that. So it makes sense to keep these as separate contracts. It makes sense to recognize them separately. I'm not shortchanging revenue. So it makes sense to then treat them as separate contracts. What that means is the original contract, the 20 at 50 Rand, I will continue to account for based on the original accounting I'd come up with. And this 5 at 48 Rand or 45 Rand, I will continue to account for separately because it's all reasonable. the amount I'm recognizing for this revenue is not understated or overstated on any of these contracts, so I can keep them separate. Versus, if I've got the second scenario now, if I'm still providing the exact same 20 bottles, I'm not adding any other bottles, it's just these 20, and I'm changing the price. And I'm changing the price after I've already delivered 5. It doesn't mean that the remaining 15 are now worth more than the first 5. It's still the same contract. Only thing that's changed is me and this customer have agreed a different price. So because it's still one contract, I'm not providing additional goods or services. There's a new price though for this contract. I must then still allocate this correctly, right? I must still then, because I'm still within one contract, I'm not walking out of this contract, I'm not creating a new contract. This new price must still be spread across all the POs in the contract. Okay, so I think this is the easiest scenario to understand, where the goods don't change. It's still the exact same number of goods, and maybe the price changes. In that case, the fact that I've added an additional, let's say 100 Rand to my transaction price doesn't mean that this 100 Rand is only relevant to the 15 that's left, just because I've only agreed it now. This 100 Rand, me and the client or me and the customer agreed relates to all of them. So then I must allocate it proportionally, okay? Because there's no additional goods, but there's a higher price. These remaining goods aren't worth more. I'm not delivering more. There's just a new agreement. So let me, to be fair and represent my revenue fairly, I must spread across all of them. Okay, I think that's the easier one, I think. This last one, of why we end up terminating the existing contract and creating a new one, is in this scenario, I had initial 20, or we had agreed to an initial 20 at 50 Rand. Now I'm selling the remaining 5 at 10 Rand, at 20 Rand. It is not reasonable that I would enter a contract with Zinhle at 50 Rand and a contract with Felicity at 20 Rand. That's not fair representation, because the bottles I'm selling to Felicity, if it's the exact same bottles, I would not sell for 20 Rand. So that's not that can't be a separate contract, because that's not a typical contract I would get into. It's not a contract that my entity would get into. So I need to make this representative. I need to make this make sense. Okay. So how to make it make sense? I say, okay, I'm clearly making this. There's a reason I'm making this concession, right? Typically, I think in practice, what would have happened, I imagine, for us to make this concession is maybe we messed up. Maybe with the first 5 we delivered late, or we made a mistake on the printing on those bottles. So we're actually trying to convince the customer to stick around, to like, okay, please, still take this 5, but we'll make a certain concession for you. Okay. So in that case, what's happened has happened. We've messed up. With this first 5, we have actually messed up, but we're trying to correct it now with the new contract. So with this new contract, which is the 5 we have not, 15 we have not yet delivered, plus the 5, we must now try to find a price that makes sense, because it's not 20 Rand. This 5 is not worth 20 Rand. It just can't be, right? I know that this is not the standalone selling price, so I need to find what is the price for these additional bottles I'm selling. And the best way to do that is to say, well, I've got a new contract, right? I've got a new contract. Bring the two prices together, and based on the two prices together, allocate that new price. Allocate the new total price to the new 20 that I need to deliver. Okay, so with the terminating existing contract means whatever's happened has happened. I keep that revenue, right? I keep that revenue. And then whatever is undelivered, the undelivered portion, plus the additional goods I bring together, because it's not reasonable that these 5 would be at a discount, at such a significant discount. It's not reasonable that I have such a separate contract. So this additional 5 plus undelivered creates a new contract. And from that, based on the new contract, I determine a new transaction price and allocate that to the remaining goods in the contract. Yes, we are still on the slides with the contract modifications. I've not moved from that slide yet. Okay. Amogelang is gonna have to be the last question on contract modifications, guys, because we've got a lot of more content to cover and we're running out of time. Amogelang?
Hi, Kenny. I actually want to confirm something, and I think you've maybe rather clarified it, right? So, with regards to the remaining goods or the remaining units or services that you're selling, right? So you're only gonna be allocating the new transaction price to the remaining, not the old one. We just leave them out. I mean, the ones that have been sold, there's nothing that we're gonna be allocating to it.
So when you say the ones that have been sold, I'm talking about the 5 we've already delivered.
Yes, the 5
Yeah.
already delivered.
Yes, the 5 already delivered, we leave it as is. That contract is done. The new transaction price is just this new 15 plus, oh sorry, the remaining 15 plus the new 5. That's what you're allocating to.
No, okay.
So now it asked for this allocation, right? So what I had done here for the allocation was to say we've got an outstanding 15 plus the additional 5. So we've got 20 goods total in the new contract, right? The modified contract, we've got a total 20. Our transaction price, our remaining transaction price that we can allocate is the 50 times 15, right? Because that hasn't happened yet. That's 750 plus the 20 for the additional 5. So our total transaction price is this 850. So for that 850, we need to allocate this transaction price to the 20 POs. So then we then take the 850 over 20, and that's our new allocated transaction price to each PO. So for each bottle we deliver, we recognize 42 Rand revenue. Every 5 we deliver in this case, we recognize 212, and that's how it will go forward. I'm realizing that this is not as easy to understand. So what I will suggest, what I'll do is I will actually use the exact same example and break it down for the different 3 scenarios, right? So I'll just do a little thing and then I'll share that with you guys. I'll do a little thing to show that, okay, if we had option 1, there's a separate contract, this is how it would play out. This is option 2, how it would play out, so that you guys can see what that would look like in practice. Because I think the theory is not as easy to understand as the actual practice. So I'll do that for you guys. But I'm really sorry, we do need to move from contract modifications into step 2. Okay, step 2, like I said, I put a lot of reliance on. So step 2 is identifying the performance obligations. Performance obligations is essentially when you're identifying a performance obligation, you're identifying each promise to deliver a distinct good or service to the customer. So as an entity, we make lots of promises to customers, right? But the key thing is to assess that in those promises we've made, which of them represent something that is distinct. It's a distinct good or service that something that we can actually transfer the control over to the customer. Meaning it's something that we can deliver and the customer can use. All right? We can deliver and the customer is not left waiting on us it's not left waiting for other parts in the contract before they can use this part. Okay. So there are 2 parts to get there. All right. First part is that it's capable of being distinct. So this looks at the customer perspective. So this is saying the customer is able to benefit from the good or service alone. So think of a car. When you go and you buy a car, you'll typically buy the actual car. They'll offer you a service plan, they'll offer you a maintenance plan, and other goods. But the car, if you look at the car by itself, you don't have to take the service plan. You can take the car and you can use it without the service plan. So you can benefit from that good or service by itself. Okay? Alone. You can take the car and drive it even without a service plan. Because you can buy a service plan from somebody else. You can buy it at a later point of owning the car. You can actually pay for the service each time you have to service the car without a service plan. So you can benefit from the car by itself. You can benefit from the car alone. Okay? Or you can benefit from the good or service with other readily available resources. With other readily available resources means that these are resources that the entity has in their at their disposal. Okay. So what that means is these are, for instance, let's the example of the car and the service plan is you already have the car because they're buying the car. The service plan you can use with the car, right? So the car is so you can benefit from the service plan with other readily available resources because you've got a car. Flip it around, a service plan is something you can buy from a dealership, even if you don't buy the car from the dealership. So if you have another car at home already, you already bought a car maybe a month or 2 or 3 ago, but you realize, actually, I don't want to pay for the services cash every time because it could be a big cash injection each time. Let me rather pay for let me actually get a service plan. You can then go and buy a service plan separately from the entity, even if you don't buy the car from them. So a service plan, that is something that you as an entity or as a customer can benefit from with other readily available resources. So in that case, the car and the service plan would be two separate, well, we haven't concluded yet, but they're both capable of being distinct. Very key thing, I almost made a mistake there. I almost concluded that I've got a PO by looking at just one thing there. We can't. We must look at both capable of being distinct and distinct in the context of the contract. Okay? So we can't conclude whether they've got a PO on just one part. We conclude whether the different items, the different promises are capable of being distinct. Okay. So in this case, we're saying you've got a car, I can use this car by itself. So it's capable of being distinct. The service plan, I can use a service plan with the car I've already bought, either in this contract or a car I've bought previously. It's also capable of being distinct. So we've assessed that. The second step is looks at what the entity has done, right? So to assess distinct in the context of a contract, we look what has the entity done in this contract? What terms have the entity included in this contract? How do they typically sell these goods? Okay. So have they provided a significant service of integrating the car and the service plan, such that you can't use the car without the service plan? Okay. So are they selling it such that you need the car to get the service plan and they can't work without each other? That's not the case. We look at the next one. Do these goods significantly modify another? So does the car modify the service? No, right? Service plan is a service plan, whether I've got the car or not. Whether you buy this car from this dealer or not. The car's the car. It's not going to, if I'm buying a BMW, the BMW will be a BMW, whether I buy the service plan or not. Okay, and the entity can't do anything about that. So the service plan is not going to modify, right? And then the last one is, are they highly interrelated or highly interdependent? Very key, this word, or this portion of the word, interdependent. So it's not, does one depend on the other? It's, do they depend on each other? There's an interdependency. So does the car depend on the service plan? Does the service plan depend on the car? It's an interdependency that they need each other. One cannot exist without the other. In the car example, they're not interdependent, right? They can both exist separately. All right. So they need to assess the entity has not provided a significant service of integration. You can buy them separately. You can use them separately. The goods do not significantly modify each other. So the car doesn't modify the service plan doesn't modify the car. And the goods are not highly interrelated, highly interdependent. Then, once you've concluded on both, you can then conclude, in this case, that you've got two separate POs. Key is, from a customer perspective, it must be capable of being distinct, right? Meaning the entity can use the good or service on its own or with other resources, okay? Can use the car by itself, can use a car with another service plan, a service plan from this entity, from another entity, can use a service plan with the car from another entity, but we can use these things. The customer can use these items separately. So they're capable of being distinct. Distinct in the context of the contract. For something to be distinct in the context of the contract, it means the entity does not provide a significant service of integration, modification, or high interrelatedness or interdependency. Okay. Distinct in the context of the contract, I think a lot of people fall off there. Okay. significant service of integration, if we think of an example where this could go one or two ways, is not really the car. The car is quite separate. But software, it could go either way. So if I'm an entity that typically sells software and installs software, there are scenarios where I sell software sometimes without offering the installation service. Okay, meaning the entity can then buy the software by itself. So the customer can buy the software and can use it, or can get somebody else to go and come and install it for them, but they don't need me. They don't need my installation service. So they can use that software by itself because it's very generic, very off the shelf. Take it, plug it, put the CD or whatever into your laptop and it runs. Software is capable of being distinct. Maybe I also do sell an installation service, but I don't only install this software, I install other software, and other entities can install this software. So meaning my installation service can be used with this software I buy, but it can also be used with software bought from somebody else. So my installation service is also capable of being distinct. My software is capable of being distinct because you can use it without my installation service. My installation service capable of being distinct because I can install other people's software as well, and other software you can buy from me. It's not necessarily related to this particular software. When it comes to distinct in the context of a contract, the terms and conditions come through. So in this scenario, we're saying, look, it's very generic, off the shelf. You can use the software without my installation service. So I have not made this contract very integrated, right? Haven't gone to a lot of trouble to say, well, I am selling a customized software where I will then I'll come to your premises and make sure it works with your computer and make sure that the different functional areas in your entity have different kind of settings, and I make sure that whatever software you already had interfaces very well. I'm not doing all of that. I'm saying take the software, I can do installation if you want. In that case, no significant service of integration. However, if I am, as an example, if now I'm saying I'm not selling you the software and installation, I'm saying I am selling you a customized software program. So it's not an off-the-shelf software. It's software specifically designed for you, perhaps. And this software needs a specific interface between the new software and your existing software. And I am going to provide this. I need to provide it to make it work. So software is not necessarily going to work as well as intended if I don't do the software. I've now gone to the trouble as the entity of significantly integrating both the installation and the software. So I've provided a significant service of integration. So in this case, I won't have two POs. The installation and the software can't be separated because you can't actually use the software without my installation service. I've integrated the contract in such a way that you need me to do both for you to be able to use this, for me to be able to transfer the control to you. Because if you can't use this item I'm giving to you, the control is not transferred to you. So in this case, I could give you the software. I can give it to you on a disk or on a USB or whatever. I can give it to you and step back. But at that point, you won't be able to interface it. It won't have interfaced. And you as a customer will feel shortchanged. You'll feel that I have not done my part, right? This is not something I've agreed to. You have not obtained control of anything because you can't use the software. You can't obtain any benefit from the software until I come and I do the second part, until I integrate the two together. Okay? So in that case, I provide a significant service of integration. So then I've got one PO. So think of the first scenario again. In that scenario, we had the software. You didn't need me. You've got control of it. You can use the software as you want. You can put this disk in your laptop as you want and run with it. You can put it in and get somebody else to do it for you, to do the installation service for you, and you run with it. That case, we've got two separate POs, the installation versus the software, very, very separate. Second scenario, you need me to do this interfacing. I've created in such a way, and that's what I've promised you, that I've sold to you, that I'm going to do this for you. And you will not feel that you've received what I've promised you until it's integrated and it can actually work on your systems in the different functional areas and work with your existing software together. So in that case, the installation and the software are so integrated that you cannot say anything has been delivered. I have not delivered control of anything until I've delivered them together. Okay. That is really the main two principles here. Capable of being distinct in the context of the contract. Always discuss them together. Sorry, always discuss both of them. Okay, always discuss both of them. This slide gives an indication of suggested exam technique. Do you guys see the slide? The slide now should have step 2 as the heading, and then there's step 1 to 9 on the actual in the body of the slide. Okay, perfect. So this is suggested exam technique, because typically, honestly, when anybody tests identifying performance obligations, so test step 2, it is generally a big question, right? And because there are a few considerations, because of capable of being distinct the context of the contract, there's lots to consider. And I do think sometimes just seeing the mark allocation is intimidating, because then you don't know what to do. You're just like, I only see 2 POs, I've got the answer, I've looked at it, I can see 2 POs, I can answer you. I don't know where I'm supposed to find 20 marks. I can tell you the PO is a car and a service plan. I'm done. I've got 2 marks. I don't know what you want from me. Okay. This structure helps you then earn the marks, right? And key thing, I love to say this, take the marker through your thought process. Walk me on the journey. Okay. So first, list the goods or services in the contract. So what am I saying I'm going to give this customer? So at this point, I'm not yet assessing what are the POs. I'm reading it and saying, what are the different promises? I am saying I'm going to give you a car and a service plan and I could even be saying the car is 500,000, the service plan is 100,000, the warranty is free. These are all promises I'm making in this contract. I'm making all 3 of these promises. I have not yet started to assess. So first, I write these are the promises in the contract, and I list them. I then define what's a performance obligation. Okay. So define a performance obligation, which is the entity's promise to deliver a distinct good or service to the entity. Entity's promise to deliver a distinct good or service to the customer. Then you define the distinct good or service very, very lightly. Okay. So what's a distinct good or service? And that's both elements. The capable of being distinct and the distinct in the context of a contract. Then step 1 is you apply the requirements from a customer perspective. So you apply capable of being distinct to each of the promises. So you apply it to the car. Can the car be used by itself with other readily available resources? Can the service contract or the service plan be used by itself with other readily available resources? Can the warranty be used by itself with other readily available resources? Apply to all 3. And to all 3, you provide a sub-conclusion. Okay? So apply, the car can be used by itself as the car is capable of operating without the service plan, therefore it's capable of being distinct. The service plan is capable of being distinct because it can be used with the car that has been bought as part of this contract or with other cars that the entity already owns. Therefore, it's capable of being distinct. The warranty, depending on the terms of the warranty, I'm not going to go into that, but depending on the terms of the warranty, it could or could not. We'll discuss it in the actual question. But for all 3, we assess, right? We apply, capable of being distinct, and conclude for all 3. Then, after that conclusion, we then move on to the supplier perspective. So the distinct in the context of a contract. So has the entity, we look at the car, is there significant integration? Has it been modified? Is the interdependency? Interrelatedness or interdependency? Conclude. Look at the service plan, apply the same 3, conclude. Look at the warranty, apply the same 3, conclude. Then we conclude, okay, so actually what we are saying is that we have a promise to deliver a car, a service plan, and a service plan. Therefore, we have two performance obligations. So these two can be close to each other. We've got two performance obligations, which are the delivery of a car and the delivery of a service plan. And you see how that this was what you had from your initial reading. You had this. This was your conclusion. Those were the 2 marks you were comfortable you were going to earn. But by breaking it down and taking the step process, you've demonstrated your understanding of the principles in IFRS 15 related to POs, such that you've been able to earn probably an additional 10 marks, if not more, just by listing this. And the number of marks available is dependent on the number of promises. So it always starts by here. If there's 5 promises, then there's far more marks available because you need to assess each one from a customer perspective and from a supplier perspective and provide a sub-conclusion on each one. So the more promises that we've provided in the question, the more marks we'll probably have for this question. So take the structure, and my suggestion would be when you attempt the question, start writing it down. Promises in the contract, customer perspective, supplier perspective, so that you are able to remind yourself and work through it methodically as you answer the question. Zinhle?
Hi. Just for clarification again. Well, you did say at the beginning you like people to engage, so I do like to engage. With regards to a customer's perspective, do I just when I apply the requirements, is it the part of that being capable of being distinct, can it benefits on alone or readily available? Do I just apply that portion, or do I also have to apply the portion of distinct in the context of the contracts? Like now I want to break it when I'm at step 4. I just focus on the goods or service being distinct on its own, or like the customer can benefit on its own or readily available with other resources. And when I'm at the portion of the supplier now or the entity perspective, I apply the ones of significant service, of integration, and so forth. Because doing it in both, I think I'll be repeating what I said to a customer, repeat to what I said to an entity. Whereas if I break it down, maybe I know if I've already touched on distinct thing on its own, I touch it based on the customer, and yeah. Thanks.
And you are 100% correct. When we speak about apply the requirements from a customer perspective, it's only the capable of being distinct. So in this case, you're only applying. So what I mean here is, you see here, when I said customer, this is what I mean. Customer perspective is capable of being distinct. Entity perspective is these 3. So at step 4, you are only applying capable of being distinct. So can benefit from the resource on its own with other readily available resources. That's in step 4. And at step 6, the supply entity perspective is distinct in the context of a contract. So it's the integration, modifying each other, or interdependency. So you're 100% correct. You deal with them separately. Conclude here for each item on the capable of being distinct, and then conclude here for each item on the integration, modification, interdependency. Does that make sense, Zinhle?
Yes, thank you. It clarifies it. Yeah, I'm picking now. I want to pass. Thanks.
We are going to pass. We need to write that, guys, on our walls, on our files. We are passing IAC June 2025 because that's what's happening. We are going to pass. Varelo?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just to add on Zinhle's question, will I be correct if I'm talking from a customer perspective, I only focus on paragraph 27, and then on an entity perspective, I look at paragraph 29, A, B, and C?
You know, guys, I don't know these paragraphs off by heart. So let me go back. 27. So you said capable of being distinct is paragraph 27.
Yeah, on a customer's perspective. And
Other
then from the entity
the entity
from
is
the
29.
let's talk about 29 A, B, and C.
Okay. So 27, all right, is actually A is customer perspective, capable of being distinct, and B is entity perspective, distinct of the context of the contract. So 27A is the customer perspective. So you see the principle I'm talking about is actually, can you guys see? I've changed my screen. I'm looking at the standard. Can you guys see it? Okay, perfect. So 27A speaks about the customer can benefit from the good or service on its own with other readily available resources. So that's A. B is the promise to transfer is distinct in the context of the contract. And B is further explained here in 29ABC. So yes, entity perspective is 29ABC. 27A is further explained here. So how this works is 27A speaks to both customer, 27 speaks to both customer perspective and entity perspective. A is customer, B is entity. Then 28 builds up on what is meant by 27A, and 29 builds up on what is meant by 27B. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Camilla, is that a hand or was it just a thumbs up?
Hi, it's a hand. Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for the steps that you just gave us now here, because I just used to mix everything and it'll be a mess. And I'm just glad now that you broke it down for us into two parts, which is one dealing with the customer perspective and one dealing with the entity. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome, guys. And please, we'll practice this again when we're doing our question. This is very helpful. It also, we use this as well when we're marking to try, this is how we set up to award the marks. So please practice this, right? We're going to practice together, but practice this as well when I'm not around to make sure that you get used to it. You get used to it. It could even help with your flags to speak to them of distinct or customer perspective, entity perspective, to just entrench this for yourselves. Okay. We have been together for a long time now. We need to take a bit of a break. So I'm gonna take a break now for 10 minutes. Camilla, is that a hand again?
Yes, may I please just ask these questions before you maybe
Yes.
give us the break? May I please just understand how the program works in terms of the questions? So are we supposed to just go through the question banks by ourselves, or are we going to be told, do this question or do that? Because I see for today's lecture, you had given us a question from the CTA content. So I'm just not sure about, do we do the ones in the board course for IAC according to the timetable you are going to give us, or homework? I'm not sure.
Okay, so in terms of preparing for the class, it will be very specific to the questions that are in the phase note, so like printco. And yes, it is the CTA content. It should probably be, I would imagine, in the IAC, but I'll confirm in the IAC content as well. But in terms of preparing for the class, use what the phase note says, and those are the questions we'll work through together in class. The remaining questions in the question bank is designed for you guys to work through by yourselves without the lecturer. So like for today, you need to be working through any other questions that speak to revenue without me to test your own understanding. And I don't think I've said this, but in my view, do not try to do as many questions as possible. Don't try, the objective should not be, let me get through all of them. The objective should be, let me get through the questions to practice specific principles. So you target a question to say, I would need to entrench these revenue principles. And you go into a question that does that, and you give yourself time, especially at the beginning. Take the time to do it well, and take the time to do the reflection well, and identify the key areas that you're struggling with, and start to fix those. So don't rush to finish the question bank. Make sure you give yourself time. You target the questions to deal with the areas that you can feel are still struggling with. Target those questions. Give yourself time to work through it. Practice the exam technique. Practice the principles. And if you're still finding some difficulty and you're not actually sure where the difficulty is, let's consult. Let's have a discussion. And then let's see how we can help each other. So for the classes, use what's in the phase note. For the remaining questions of the question bank, use that to entrench your knowledge away from class. So without any of the lecturers working through it with you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Cool. Charmaine?
Hi. I just wanted to ask, I'm new, I just started today. So I wanted to ask, where do we get the material, the question banks, the material for classes and all?
Okay. Do you have access to Viva Engage?
I just saw from the emails that were saying that I'm supposed to have it on my phone, but I don't know what login details I'm supposed to use and all.
Okay, I'll ask one of the caretakers to get in touch with you, and then they'll help you and guide you through how to get to Viva Engage, how to log in. But Viva Engage is where everything will be communicated, where the timetables are, and that's will give you access to, of course, you'll have access to a workspace, and that's where the course content will be, the timetable, question banks, everything. So I'll ask the caretaking team to get in touch with you to help you through that.
All right, thank you so much.
Cool. All right, guys, let's take a 10-11 minute break and come back at 11:35, and then push through to finish the content as well as start working through the question. See you just now.